Hello you guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Sadaf and I love all things home decor and DIY. I have actually posted a couple more of these DIY videos in the past, so if you enjoyed this one, please consider subscribing and checking those ones out as well. For today, I wanted to share with you this table lamp that's behind me and a wall hanging that's in my basket wall and a sunburst mirror. They used to be popular a couple years ago, but I still like them, so I made one. The first DIY, I wanted to make a table lamp, so I picked up this affordable planter. It was already painted black, but I wasn't a fan of the sheen that it had, so I just gave it a good sand, cleaned it up, and then drilled a hole about 3 centimeters from the top of the planter. The top part is going to be the bottom of our base later. I then gave it 2 coats of this matte black acrylic paint and just let it dry. I then thinned out some white oil paint, used a small brush to paint inside all the grooves of my planter. I painted and just gave it a couple of seconds. It had some time to dry a little bit. Then I rubbed the cloth and removed all the excess paint. I then rubbed the cloth all over the planter using that small amount of paint that was on it, so my planter wouldn't be all stark black. Then I used some powdered charcoal. I poured some on top of my planter, used the same cloth to rub it all over the planter. I used the footage here, but you can see what a beautiful finish it gives the planter, or our lamp base, I should say. Because my base already had a hole at the bottom, I didn't need to drill this one. I got my cord through the hole and then through the hole that we drilled earlier. I then added a switch side of my cord, and this other side already had a light bulb socket holder. I just added my shade on top. I then used some hot glue to make it secure, added a light bulb, and my lamp was complete. For the second DIY, I wanted to make a sunburst mirror. I had a mirror and a ring that was smaller than my mirror. I think it would be nicer if the ring is just a tiny bit smaller than the mirror. I used some hot glue, attached the raffia to my ring, and just started wrapping the raffia around my ring. I covered the whole ring, and then I drew a circle and drew my sections, and here I'm just marking the sections on my raffia, on my ring. The dowel isn't super secure now, so I'm using my raffia and kind of just trying to wrap it around the dowel and the ring and just helping the dowel stay in place better. I then just continued wrapping the raffia around the ring. When I got to my next marked part, I just added my second dowel. I gave it a couple of seconds so it was a little drier, and then again used my raffia, wrapped it around the whole thing, the ring and the dowels, and then just moved on to the rest of my ring. The reason I'm wrapping the ring twice is because I wanted my ring to look a little bit thicker and more substantial. Overall, I used 16 dowels, but I think I could have used more. I'm using a bigger ring now and just repeating the same process. When I was done, I just put the bigger ring underneath the smaller one. I made sure to center the rings, and I just used some hot glue, attached my dowels to the second ring as well. And here I'm using raffia again. This time I'm wrapping the raffia around the dowel and the ring. This way I made sure my dowels were all secure, and it also gives the mirror frame almost like a more finished look. I just repeated the same thing for all the dowels, creating almost like an X pattern on top of the dowels, and then moving on to the ring and wrapping the ring for the second time. For the third ring, I used this ring that I had. It was already wrapped in jute, but I didn't bother removing the jute, honestly. But I just repeated the same process, and this time I made sure to cover the jute completely so none of it was showing through. Honestly, you could just use wooden rings. It would be way easier, but these ones are way cheaper and I already had them. When I was done, I just used some more hot glue. I could have used a stronger glue and just attached the mirror to my frame, and the mirror was done. And for the last DIY, I used some natural rope. You can buy seagrass ropes off of Amazon. I'm creating a spiral here with my rope and using this thick needle and some jute, and as you can see, I just got my ring through the spiral that I just made, cut the excess jute, continued making my spiral bigger. You want the jute on the back side of your wall hanging, and I just kept on wrapping and making my spiral bigger. After a couple of rows, I then flipped the wall hanging again, and again using the needle through the new rows. I then moved on to another section, repeated the same thing in the other direction, and I just did this a couple times to make sure my spiral was secure. I just repeated this every couple of rows. Honestly, I could have used hot glue and it would have made my life so much easier. I don't know why I decided to use this method. But as you can see, I'm just repeating the same thing over and over and over, just adding a couple of rows and then using the needle and jute to secure the new rows to the last one, to the old ones. And you don't have to go through the whole circle each time, just a couple of rows would be enough. When I was happy with how big my wall hanging was, I decided to make almost like a lip. I didn't want my wall hanging to be flat. So as you can see here, the last couple of rows, instead of putting them right next to each other and making the wall hanging flat, I just moved them up a little bit each time, a little further, to almost create like a bowl-like look. I don't know what to call it. I then just cut my rope and finished it off, as you can see here. And then I decided to use some black yarn to give it some design. If I had used hot glue for this project, it would have made this part a little bit harder and more challenging, because it would have been hard to get the needle through hot glue, but overall it would have made the whole project way more easier. Just did this all around my wall hanging and I was done. So I hope you enjoyed these DIYs, and again, please consider subscribing and liking this video and letting me down below which one was your favorite. I hope to see you again. Bye!